guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new video. Today I want to talk to you about 4 books that made me cry, and I'm sure if I were to reread them I would cry just as much. I cry easily when I'm watching films, even if I'm listening to music. With books all the time is like normal now. No one finds it strange. I might just start crying if I'm talking to someone and I get really passionate and emotional, so that's normal for me. So I decided to show you just 4 books that made me cry in the past. I chose these books because 2 of them I talked about before, but the other 2 I think I've never mentioned them before, but I can't be sure now. I just decided not to go for like obvious books such as The Order of the Phoenix because, you know, I did a Harry Potter tag a couple weeks ago and I told you that I cried when I read The Order of the Phoenix, so I don't need to talk to you about that again. We are going to start with the one that I don't own physically. I read this book 4 or 5 years ago, I don't even know. I didn't have an e-reader at the time, so I got this EPUB app on my phone and I got the book. I didn't want to buy it, or rather I didn't want to order it because I couldn't find it here in Portugal. Now I can, by the way, because this book has a lot of mixed reviews and I wasn't sure if I wanted to spend money on a book that, you know, I'm not really sure if I'm going to enjoy it or not. So I decided to read it on my phone. I never read books on my phone now, obviously, but at the time I didn't have a choice. I'll have a picture like here or something. That's Girl at War by Sara Novick. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing her last name. So Girl at War is set in Zagreb in 1991 and it is about Anna and her life once the civil war in Yugoslavia started. So the first part of the book is divided into 2 parts. The first part, we follow Anna as a child in Zagreb, dealing with everything that comes with, you know, being at war. And the second part is set 10 years later in America / Croatia. So we go to America because Anna is living in America, but at the same time we also go back to Croatia. She has to rediscover her country, her home after the war, and it is this really beautiful journey to self-discovery and, you know, finding out where you belong in the world after such a terrible event. So obviously this has a lot of information about the breakup of Yugoslavia, which happened in the early 90s. I really like this book because at school I loved history growing up. You know, it was one of my favorite subjects at school, and I actually thought about majoring in history when I went to university. You don't know anything about this war. So we don't go into Yugoslavia, you know, we learn about the First World War, the Second World War, and then, you know, we learn about Portugal, Portuguese history. If you study history at secondary level, you go into the Second World War, Cold War, Vietnam, a little bit maybe, and then you just go back to Portugal and like 20th century Portuguese history. So we never talk about Yugoslavia, and I learned a lot about this war with my dad because my dad loves history, and growing up he was always telling me about all of these historical events, and I think that's why I love history as well. So I knew a whole lot before reading this book, but I got to learn even more, and it was quite interesting and at the same time such an emotional journey. But I do understand the mixed reviews. I don't know if this is Sarah's first book. The writing is not perfect, but there are some beautiful passages, and I really like how she tried to capture a lot of what was happening, the setting, through visual imagery, and I think she didn't repeat herself, and I think she tried her best to be concise. But at the same time, you can see that there's room for improvement. I don't own the book physically. It is a book that I think I will reread one day, but right now it's not a priority, so I'm not getting it. But yes, eventually I want to get this book. The second book that I want to talk to you about is Christiane F. and this is a Portuguese edition, and the original title is German. I only took German for a semester, so bear with me, but I think the German title is Wir Kinder von Bahnhof Zoo. I'm not sure. So the children from the station, a metro station, whatever. This is about Christiane F. This is not Christiane F. This is the actress who played her in the film. This book is set in the 1970s, and it is a personal account on Christiane's drug abuse. This was written with 2 ghostwriters, so obviously she helped. She met 2 journalists at the time, Kai Harman and Horst Rieck, not sure, and they help her obviously with this book. This basically follows Christiane's whole childhood, and then the first time she started using drugs and everything that came after. I read this book before I started university. I think my mom wanted to scare me and she succeeded. This is a little bit extreme. This is very, very graphic. Very, very graphic, okay? The language is very, very explicit. It is something that I don't know if I can reread it now without just feeling a little bit uncomfortable, because yeah, you get the whole deal. Like, you know how she did drugs, and you know what she needed to do drugs, and everything, and it is just heartbreaking, and it is very, very powerful. I don't know, it was the first time that I read something like this. You know, she was only 14 at the time, so reading about someone going through this at such a young age, and obviously we don't know what that's like anymore, because you know, I was privileged because I was born in like a loving family, and I always, you know, I was always protected from the evil and sometimes we forget that these things happen. It was just really important, and an eye-opener in a way. So yeah, I really like this book, but I don't know if I could reread it now without feeling super uncomfortable because of the fact that it's just so explicit. The next book that I want to talk to you about was my favorite read of 2018, The Lessons by Naomi Alderman. This is about James and his friendship with a group of people from Oxford. This is all about them growing up and becoming adults and being haunted in a way by their own feelings that they left unexpressed for so many years. This is a contemporary fiction, but also LGBT. There are a lot of interesting references about love and the concept of being in love. I haven't read other books by Naomi Alderman. I know she wrote The Power, I think, but I think that's completely different from this one. A lot of things happen, a lot of emotions, and sometimes you think, well, if this happened to me, I mean, I don't even know what I would do. But somehow I felt really comfortable and just at ease while reading this book. Yeah, I almost didn't buy it because I'm not a fan of the cover. It just felt a little cheesy. But then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot. But there are some graphic scenes here, so just, you know, trigger warning for that. I tear up every now and then. Like, I wasn't crying all the time, but yeah, it just made me really emotional, and I really like James, and you know, it's just what that guy went through. Poor guy. But yeah, I just wanted to give him a hug. And finally, this was my favorite book of 2019. I've mentioned it before, and that's A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. I'm not sure if it's Ove or Ove, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. So this is about Ove's life, basically. His childhood, his first love, his marriage, his life as a whole. And everything that happened that drove him to make the decision, to make such a decision. I don't want to tell you what he decided because that would be a spoiler. But thanks to a very chatty couple, he just felt compelled to help them out in a way, even though he would tell you that he didn't want to help them, but he felt compelled to do something. That couple entered his life, changed everything in a way. It was a roller coaster of emotions, guys. Ove is not a nice person. He's really grumpy, and somehow he made me think about certain family members that obviously I love, but at the same time they can be really grumpy as well. And I don't know, I felt really connected to him. It was like he was my grandfather or something. I would highly recommend this book. I think this is his first book, but correct me if I'm wrong. I want to get more books by Fredrik Backman really, really soon. But yeah, I read this fairly quickly and it's just funny without even realizing that he's being funny because he's so grumpy. So I don't know what else to tell you guys. Just read this book because it is just amazing. So those are the 4 books. I only have 3 to show you, but those are the 4 books that made me cry in the past. I'm sure that I would cry and, I don't know, feel a whole lot of emotions if I were to reread them now. I'm sure that I will reread them one day. I'm just not sure about Christian F. I think that I would feel very, very uncomfortable, but at the same time very emotional because, again, of the subject matter, because this is about a young girl, not a young woman, a young girl, a teenage girl going through everything that she went through with drug abuse and just relationships in general. It is very, very powerful. This is written in the first person. I think that really had an impact on me. It was like she was telling me her story and you couldn't help but just feel powerless. You wanted to help, but you couldn't. And I think that's why this book is so special to me. But I think that, you know, because now I have more experience, I'm older and all that, I would feel really uncomfortable reading this book just because it is so graphic. So all of them have some trigger warnings, obviously. Let me know if you have read these books and if you agree with me or not, if they're special to you or not. Tell me your thoughts. And yeah, that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.